And we're going to talk real quick about composting in place, where you just simply dig a hole, but deep enough to where nothing can undig your hole, meaning a varmint, and covering it back up and leaving it. Got everything I need in here, and all I really need to do is just put it in, cover the dirt back over it. Okay, so now it's covered back up, and I just want to step on it a little bit. I want some air in there, but I also don't want any air really coming back up so that nothing can dig it back up. Hey guys, it is June 23rd, Zone 5, Northwest Ohio, and I am out here composting in place, and I love these. These are fantastic for your composting containers and leaving them in the refrigerator. So I'm just really out here composting in place. So I've got a hole here. These are wildflowers. This I just did on the last video. That's done. I do not want to get it close to that watermelon any more than what it already is. And I found a nice empty hole down here. A lot of the times, this is why I get volunteers too. I'll probably get sweet potatoes that come up. And I got 2 more holes right here in between the zucchini, the tomato, and the cucumber. And if you can see, the root system on all of these are not that big yet. You can, however, pull these pots up later and get a little bit underneath those pots and bury them. Now, there's a couple things I want to talk about here with composting in place. Number one, you can see back here, there's a piece of chicken in there. Worms are going to eat that just the same. I'll probably find myself a bone in there. There was also a little bit of gravy. The other day you seen me bury some coleslaw. The ground is going to absorb that. The ground is pretty forgiving, you guys. So it's not like you have an abundance of all of these rules that you would if you have a compost pile and you're doing a lasagna method and you're getting your browns and your green proportion and then so much for your kitchen scraps. It's really as easy as it can be. I'm going to cover this up. I'm going to tamp it down with my foot or whack it with this shovel, and then I'm done. I don't have to come out here and turn this stuff. Hey guys, today is July 13th, and I had a lot of kitchen scraps again, so I had to bury them. These are 2 empty spots because I moved these 2 eggplants from there, and that's where they're gonna stay because I need more airflow. But since I've accumulated more, I'm going to now bury those kitchen scraps there. I carefully moved the vines on my mini mushmelon and my sugar baby watermelon to where I could actually do that. And I was very careful about not getting any of the roots around the plant. So I don't have a big hole at all, just enough. And you can see, I mean, look at this. This is where this plant starts. So I have not bothered any of the roots, and I haven't bothered any on this side either. So you do need to be very mindful when you are doing that, when you are picking your spot to throw your kitchen scraps in. And again, I mean, they're way down here. You're seeing the leaves. Oh look, here's another one. Woohoo! I'll come out here and pollinate that in a couple days. I will hand pollinate that. I'm not disrupting any of the roots. All I'm doing is I'm digging a hole. I'm putting my kitchen scraps in. The area in my yard is starting to dissipate because I have so many kitchen scraps buried throughout that I don't really need to worry about that right now. The next spot I could use would be underneath these 2 pots, but when I started to replant these and have myself like a nice little, this will be a green bean archway here with these two lovebirds underneath it. But before I did that, I already put scraps underneath here. So they're already composting in place for me. So that's it. I'm just gonna fill these holes up and I'm good. I'm not turning anything. I'm not saving anything. I'm not doing from one bin to another bin. I'm not worried about ratios. It's pretty easy. And if I have something like coleslaw, which you guys have seen me put in there before, the soil's pretty forgiving. I would not do it a lot. And I wouldn't do it when I have everything so close here and I'm afraid something would dig it up. I actually did it down there, and whatever they dig up, I don't really care. So you need to consider that in your thought process as well. Look at how beautiful these wildflowers turned out, guys. Aren't those great? That's that Jones bee mix. I did a video on that before. But this is the last patch. One of the last patches, and you can still see that I've got eggshells in here. All right, you guys, so I came out here, I dug a hole, and I have a sufficient amount of dirt. You can see my mound here in order to cover that. I've got way more kitchen scraps in the kitchen, but not enough space, available space that isn't already planted. Next to a little herb patch. This still has got compost in here that I buried like 2 weeks ago, so it hasn't broke down. And sunflowers and zinnias and everything next to it. And I'll go ahead and I'll cover this up with the soil that I just took out. And then I will put the telephone book that I leave out here on top of it. And that's a marker for me to know the last place that I buried up here. Easy breezy. All right, there we go. We got it covered up. Got the phone book there. I'm just gonna mash it down a little bit with my foot. I didn't worry about watering anything in because I got way more important things to do now that I'm at the height of growing season. And if you notice, I didn't really bother to chop everything up, and I left that egg carton absolutely whole. Hey guys, so I just pulled this zucchini up. And I have got my compost, and again, I am going to go ahead and compost, bury in place. Could not be easier. Everything buried, all of our kitchen scraps so that we can compost in place. And I do pat it down with the shovel. And I needed to add a little bit more soil. That's also why I keep this bucket here. It acts as a hose guide to go around it, and it also has some backup dirt in case I need to get another inch or two. Also, if you can see right where the shovel was, that's where that hole began. And I am far away from the roots. Hey guys, so here is my bucket that I will move whatever I've composted, and it's already composted, and I have extra, I'll move it into this bucket as a reserve. So if you look down here, that's some pretty good stuff I've got going on. And I am using it to do these lettuce cells. Okay, here is the other nice big hole that I have dug. And you can see I've saved the grass because I want to cover that up at the very end. And that also allows me with the shovel just to get back here a little bit so that I can weed that. So I'm just going to throw all of this in here as well. Going to tumble that dirt back on there, grass at the very top. And you can see over here what we buried before. The only thing we now can see is little bits of eggshells. That was it. Dug myself a trench. I am going to put all 3 of these jam-packed compost containers in here, kitchen scrap containers, so that I can make them a nice rich, and look at how nice and rich that soil is already for me, because I've been doing this process for a couple of years. But I'm going to bury that, and anything additional that I need I can take out of my reserve, which is how I have been doing this all year. I don't want my soil to be bumped up. So if it's not level by the time I add all of this, I will just take the reserve and I will put it in here. And then I use those to fill my cells, and I'm working on some fall lettuce here. All right, so it's in the trench. It's gonna take a while for those corn cobs to break down. I will get volunteer tomatoes here. All right, all 3 compost bins done. Completely buried, flattened out, and surface is level. I'm not worried about the roots here for these beans because they're on their way out. You can see this plant's on its way out. But don't worry, I started making myself this gorgeous bean archway with the same exact kind of beans. And you can see some of them hanging here. Aren't they gorgeous? And if I'm not sick of beans yet, well, then I have some blue lake green beans here. And right behind that batch is another batch or succession planting of the same bean, Blue Lake. Sometimes you just gotta treat yourself and get yourself a new compost bin. August 24th, and you guys know the routine by now. I just buried compost over here, so I will not be burying there. It's too fresh. I have gotten away from the sunflowers as best I can. They don't really have deep roots. They have what is called feet, a lot like corn. So I'm not going to disturb anything here. I'm going to put these 2 in it. I'm going to rake my dirt back over it. And now that it's the end of the season, I have a surplus of dried grass. And I need to start rebuilding the soil that is up here, like I rebuilt the soil that I've got over here last summer. So this will be a great head start. September 24th, and I am going to bury this. The excess dirt that I've got, I'm going to put into this bucket, which I have got old beans and pumpkin vines in, and at the bottom a little bit of shredded paper. I'm then going to come over here, snatch up some of this grass, and then I'll put this dirt on top because I need to plant this gorgeous heirloom French lettuce that I started from seed, and you are more than welcome to watch that video. I'll put the name up here because I cannot pronounce it at all. And by the way, you're more than welcome to watch any of my videos. Okay, once everything is potted up, I'm going to place this pot with the lettuce on top of this table, and I'm going to move it on top of our cold composting in place spot. Look a little bit closer. Can you see? I've cooked those carrots. There's some butter on them. There's some olive oil on them. Probably a little bit of garlic. Potato as well. So, yeah, they've got oil on them. You don't think that the earth that decomposes bodies cannot handle a little bit of what I've cooked with? Absolutely it can. Don't worry about that. You're not putting this on a compost pile. You're cold composting in place. It can take it, trust me. You can see I've been processing peppers, freezing them up. I have a video on that. Everything over here was kind of like butter because I've been putting all of my compost there the last couple times, and you can definitely feel it when you sink your shovel into something that you have been working and have been cold composting in place. It goes in like butter, and you can see some of the remaining eggshells there. I need to water, so I'm gonna water all of this out because it looks really nasty, and I'm just gonna cover this up. I already had this halfway dug out because I started all of my fall lettuce and I needed more soil for my buckets so that they're elevated. completely off the ground on these tables, so no rabbits, groundhogs. The squirrels will get in here to bury stuff. Alright you guys, so now we're gonna cold compost in place with this pot. And you can see I just dug a hole, pushed it all over here. I've got some leaves at the bottom. I've got my first container dumped. I'll dump my second container. And this, all of the peppers that we harvested. Push all of this back over here. And look at how easy that was. Didn't cost us a dime. I am going to bury all of this pasta and rice, and I'm gonna compost it, just like I do with anything else. All right, there you have it. That's quite a bit, but we're doing this in fall, so it will be nice and softened up by springtime, and eventually the worms will be able to digest this and eat this, and it will be fine. But this is something a little bit different. You can get rid of this way. I'm not planting anywhere. I'm gonna let this go for 6 months and it'll be fine, guys. Otherwise, you're just gonna throw it out. It's gonna go in the landfill. Cleaning out my pantry. This is all expired. And this is expired from my fridge. And this bread flour, and I Googled this, I could keep it up to 2 years if it was in the freezer. This is at least 5 years old. And I do not have room in my freezer to keep a big old thing of flour. I have got lots of vegetables that I grew that I want to take me through the winter. So, sorry, not sorry. There is not enough room for bread flour. Now, would I be putting pasta and all of this flour in my soil at the beginning of spring? No. It's November. This is going to have anywhere from, I'm going to say, 4 to 6 months with a lot of moisture, a lot of snow. And by the time I get back out there, I'm not even gonna know any of this was even in the ground or in the soil. And this all came from the ground, so I can put it back in there. So it's all in. If you can see, I have a pretty long trench there. And this pasta, it's gonna soften up as it rains, as it snows. Worms probably are not gonna want it today. That's all right. We're gonna have plenty of other things in here to eat on, like those peppers and all of the regular compost that's underneath this. I'm just gonna turn that soil back over. I'm gonna put the weeds on the bottom, and we're just gonna let this roll for about anywhere to 4 to 6 months. In this zone, it's gonna be at least 6 months. And again, I'm doing this in the fall. All right, it just happens to be a nice day. The last couple days, I've been in like the 20s and the 30s. Therefore, I could dig into the ground, but not into the containers because those are already frozen up. So when you start getting towards the end of the season and you have this compost, prioritize the things that are above the ground level to put your kitchen scraps in. And then I have all year long, and I'll keep my shovel out, and when I accumulate more kitchen waste, I'll come out and just start digging again. And if you need a marker, then make yourself a marker with the rack. I just did this. These are some beets right here. We're gonna leave those alone. I have a few little shallots right here. But the next time I can come back over into where I had these zinnias and pop some kitchen waste in there. Once I pull these up and these up, I've got another 2 more spots there. I have got 2 containers here that I can still get into the ground. It's not frozen yet. But first, I'm gonna put it in my my wheelbarrow. I'll flash you a gorgeous picture of that. It is not frozen. I'm going to do this first rather than the galvanized tubs because the galvanized tubs have holes on the bottoms and worms can get to them. This cannot. It's going to take all season for this stuff to break down. All right, here we go. It is so chilly out here, but not too chilly that we have frozen up the wheelbarrow yet. This was absolutely gorgeous for me. I loved it. So you can see it's off the ground, so no worms can get into it. Also, the heat from the earth isn't going to help me out. Unlike these galvanized pots, I still have a little bit of time because I've got the heat and the worms to help me out. So all I really need to do here is bury it, go get in the house, and warm up. It's actually winter, and we'll make this the last and final video. Since it warmed up enough, I can actually dig into the ground. I've got some stuff here. Also, I've got some beet tops I want to put back in there. This I am going to pitch because it is all moldy. I've gotten a good year out of it. Don't worry, I'll treat myself and get a fresh one or two. And you guys, it could not be easier than to cold compost in place. The tubs above ground, I have already done this too. I've already cold composted in those. If you haven't, once your ground thaws during a nice winter break, you're going to want to hit those first, remember? Because they're going to freeze before your actual in-ground composting area. You guys, I want to thank you so much for watching this video, hanging in there with me. Anyone can cold compost in place. Efficient, easy, streamlined. Thank you so much for watching, and I invite you again to subscribe, as I have been gardening for over 40 years and have a lot to teach, show, grow, review, experiment with, and my favorite, a specific variety everything deep dive. So let's try new things together, mix it up, and have a glorious day.